I'm Natalia Lobach, and this is Change Course. Sabotage. No, you're not imagining it. You're probably right. Somebody's probably trying to sabotage your change. I remembered today one of the funniest things that ever happened to me on a change project. And this story is true. So, yes, it's wild. And no, you probably won't believe me, but this actually happened. And now that I've had a bit of time between when it happened and the present day, I can look back on it with a bit of humor and tell you about it, because it was literally the wildest thing that ever happened on one of my projects. Some of you might be familiar with the CIA 1944 publication called The Field Guide to Sabotage. And when I was working at a very highly political, highly hierarchical driven organization, and my job was to implement a change, I had to come face to face with one of the most difficult stakeholders I have ever worked with in my career. And this person was not willing to change. They had a lot to lose as part of change in any shape or form that came. They had developed a very highly structured area of the organization that they were in charge of, and they really didn't want anybody in their house. So when it came time for me to start working on the change, all of a sudden I would find that it was just impossible to work with the team. This leader had an iron grip on the team members that they had and managed them mostly through fear. And there were also some cultural pieces that came along with that as well. And it made it really hard. But there almost seemed to be some kind of rhyme or reason behind what was happening. And then someone who felt incredibly guilty about what was happening and felt compelled to be honest and a true person and a good person, who they are to this day, shared with me that the manager had sent them all this field guide to Sabotage and asked them to participate in these activities in order to prevent the change from happening. Because of the type of the organization it was, and because of a whole bunch of other factors, this thing never really took off. So it was escalated, all of that stuff. But unfortunately, there were no consequences to this manager's actions. But what did happen was that I got acquainted with all of these little things that were happening. And truthfully, over the years, I've seen these things happen, and it always comes up around resistance to change. I've seen it happen deliberately, but I've also seen it happen naturally. So some of the things in this list make me laugh because some of them are just human impulses when we want to resist change that we do anyway, maybe don't really think about them. And other times it can really feel like it's intentional and like someone is trying to sabotage you. Anyway, I'll share the link in the show notes. Highly recommend you take a look. But it's free. It's available on Gutenberg, which is the link I'm going to share with you. And my favorite part of this manual is section 11, General Interference with Organizations and Production. The very first thing we see here is, if you want to interrupt or sabotage organizations or conferences, insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make speeches, talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experiences. Never hesitate to make a few appropriate, patriotic comments. I mean, come on. You can probably think of people who already fit this bill. When possible, refer all matters and decisions to committees for further study and consideration. And attempt to make the committees as large as possible, never less than 5. Why is that? Well, more than 5 people is startlingly inefficient, and especially when you just keep on getting new committees together. As you get, new groups together every single time, they've got to go through that group dynamics process. Oh my goodness, it takes forever. There are organizations that work this way, that use committees all the time, run everything through quote unquote channels. Goodness, I mean, this is almost a field guide for inefficiency, but this works. Or, as you're implementing change, watch out for these things. In order to take down the resistance in the system and take down some of that resistance in your organization, you've got to look at ways to circumvent the power structure to help decisions get made more quickly. Speaking of point 1. Point 2, most of the change leaders that I'm acquainted with are kind of uncomfortable talking about change, especially at the beginning. Keeping your messages short, tight, to the point really helps to focus your message, make it accessible, and help people understand the change. Get rid of the committees. Get rid of the group decision making. You really need to have a strong transformation team that works closely together and is a smaller group. That will help things move more quickly and more efficiently. Number 5 is my favorite. Haggle over precise wordings of communications, minutes, and resolutions. Oh my goodness. The number of times I've had to send quote unquote critical change communications back so that they're perfect. My goodness, it's chewed up a ton of time. If you're a change manager, one of the best things you can do here is get alignment on the key messages and then set your sponsors free. So ensure that the content and the message is aligned. We know what we're supposed to be saying, but give people the freedom in how they say it. If you're seeing a lot of resistance around communication, this can come from fear and also perhaps a history of negative backlash, problems with change, failures. And so this desire to get it right is being driven by that. You're going to have to help your sponsors and your leaders think differently and get around that. Refer back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempt to reopen the question of the advisability of that decision. Revisiting decisions is something that happens a lot in change. It's part and parcel, I guess, of the process. This is where you've got to have a really good governance structure in your transformation program. Know who your sponsors are. Know who's responsible for the decisions. If decisions need to be reconsidered, data needs to come with them. What I mean by that is it is okay to change course. It is okay to revisit a decision or say we've made a wrong decision here. But if you want to reopen that, one of the norms that you need to bring to that governance table is show me the data. Show me the data that what we decided was not the right decision. What is the data that supports we need to make a different decision? Show it to me. Let's talk about it and consider a different course of action based on what the information is showing us. Decisions shouldn't be revisited based on personal feelings and anecdotes. You've got to have data. So That's one way you can get around something that might come up like this, one of the points of resistance. There are so many interesting points here, and I highly recommend you read it. To me, this is like the field guide for change resistance. A lot of times, we'll see these behaviors come up unintentionally. So one of them that I sometimes see in the B section, managers and supervisors, is demand written orders, misunderstand what you're being told, ask endless questions or engage in a long correspondence and quibble over them. Do everything possible to delay the delivery of those orders or delay the delivery of the change. Even though parts of something might be ready beforehand, don't hand it over, deliver it until it's completely ready. So you can start to see how some of these behaviors could be intentional as they are in this manual, but you can also see these behaviors come up unintentionally. And so change resistance here can sometimes look like people being confused, having to repeat things many times. And this is where it helps for us as the change manager to step aside and lean on some of our powerful stakeholders, our sponsors, and get them to help us communicate those messages and implement that change. So here's the thing. I'm not recommending you take this and send it out to the team that you're working with if you want to resist a change that's coming, like my former colleague did. And I'm telling you, that actually happened. It is a true fact. And it was not personal. I would like to say that it wasn't personal. It was more about resistance towards the broader change. And really, I was just the messenger in some ways, or I was just the project manager in some ways. But no, it actually did happen. So I can laugh about it now. And what's funny is that you can see some of these things happening. And some individuals and organizations get really good at resisting change and really good at mucking up the system and making things inefficient and difficult from the inside. And so what I like about this list and what I like about what's here is that it gives you things to think about. And it helps you to identify those points of resistance or see them when they're coming up, call them what they are, and don't take it personally. So I hope that this was helpful. I will share this link with you and have a little laugh if you can imagine, me as this was early in my career. This wasn't in the recent past. So this was about, I would say, over 10 years ago when this occurred. And I can laugh about it now, but boy, did it take me a little while to get over. And it was, now I see it as being very funny, but it was a pretty horrible thing to have happen in the middle of your project. And then having to deal with many of these behaviors coming up within the stakeholder group. I must say that the change was implemented and it did last and it was successful. And part of what I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand why the stakeholders and why the people I was working with were being so difficult until that one person broke down and shared with me what had happened. But up until that point, what I had been doing was really using the framework that's now developed into connected change, working in hierarchical, difficult, political organizations is what led me to develop the model, because change in these contexts, it's complex and it's hard. And it can be really difficult because you've got so many stakeholders, you've got a hierarchy, you've got a ton of organizational politics that's happening. And so in order to make something happen deliberately, you've got to be able to find those conduits. You have to find those points of influence, those people in power who can help you, and then understanding how to make that change relevant and applicable inside the culture you're already working in. Any change that goes against the culture isn't going to be successful. And while I knew this implicitly, it took me another 10 years to document it and figure out why and pull it together into what is now connected change. So in some ways, I thank this former colleague of mine, who will not be named because we are not going to give him any credit in this, but I would like to thank my former colleague for trying to sabotage me, for trying to sabotage those change efforts, because without that, I would never have been able to develop what has been successful, what will be successful for you, hopefully, in driving and developing and implementing change in a way that connects people and connects with people and connects with the organization, taking into context the organizational system, taking into context group dynamics, power structures, influence, politics, and culture, and then using history and stories to drive that forward. I'm going to stop here. The weather has gotten all of a sudden really terrible, and you can probably hear the snow beating against my window. And with that, I think, goodness sakes, winter has arrived, maybe? I hope you have a fantastic day and you've enjoyed this episode. Follow along more to learn more about connected change as we start to get deeper into the method and why it's been successful and how I hope that it can help you. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, I invite you to like, share, rate, and subscribe because it helps others find us. Change Course is brought to you by Chart House Advisory Services and ConnectedChange.com. Our music is Levity by Emily Clausen. Show notes have moved. We're now at ConnectedChange.com. So visit us there under the Change Course podcast page, and you'll find a list of all the resources that I've mentioned here today. While you're visiting us, sign up for the Change Navigator newsletter. You'll keep on top of all things change, and every month we are sharing exclusive content and resources only with our subscribers. So don't miss out. Sign up at ConnectedChange.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to change course.